The world is running out of fresh water. Here's what you can do to make a difference. The thought of trying to sustain life as we know it without fresh water is unimaginable. We rely on it for food production, hydration, cooking, cleaning, hygiene, and even recreation. Water is the very center of life, the lifeblood of anything that walks, swims, or flies on planet Earth. And yet, a new report from NASA says we are inching toward a world where fresh water is much more difficult to come by. This report identified some shocking trends regarding aquifers around the globe. NASA observed 37 of the world's largest aquifers over a 10-year period from 2003 to 2013 by a satellite project called GRACE. The results of this most recent study are sobering. Of the 37 aquifers studied, 21 are being depleted at an unsustainable rate, and of those, 8 were classified as overstressed in the study, meaning they have little or no water recharging them at the present time. Logic would lead one to believe that, eventually, these aquifers can potentially be sucked dry, and that would obviously spell disaster for all life forms dependent on them. The GRACE system can measure trends in aquifer size, but not the actual amount of water contained in each aquifer. NASA has been quick to acknowledge that there is a great deal of uncertainty in projecting exact amounts of water contained within aquifers, as there is not yet a reliable method for measuring such a variable. However, these study results are still incredibly important, as we can see that current water sources in aquifers are trending in the wrong direction. Where's all that water going? Well, the water certainly isn't leaving these aquifers on its own. Each aquifer, depending on its location on the globe, has its own unique story behind why it is being emptied at an unsustainable rate. However, whether it is for mining operations, agricultural endeavors, or sustaining a densely populated community, human activity is to blame for each and every shortage in aquifer resources observed. There's no way around the fact that we have come to rely too heavily on the natural freshwater resources underground systems can provide, and we are now depleting them at an alarming rate. Agriculture and water. Agriculture is another major source of groundwater depletion around the world, and just as areas with heavy populations or ongoing industrial operations are observed draining aquifers, major agricultural endeavors are also observed in close relation to some depleted groundwater sources around the world. In fact, irrigation water for agriculture is the single largest cause of groundwater depletion around the world. The most stressed aquifer in the United States is the California Central Valley Aquifer, where agricultural operations are heavy. Other areas such as India rely almost exclusively on groundwater to feed their crops. Globally, agriculture uses about 70% of the world's available fresh water, and 1/3 of that is used to grow the grain fed to livestock. Sadly, it is estimated that as the world's population grows to 9 billion by 2050, the number of people who consume meat and dairy worldwide is only set to increase, putting a further strain on these precious water supplies. As aquifers decrease and groundwater becomes more scarce, agriculture becomes pressed to turn out enough food for the masses, threatening food security and even increasing poverty rates around the world. Industrial usage. In some areas, industry is to blame for heavy aquifer extractions. For example, the Canning Basin on the west coast of Australia is currently the 3rd most depleted aquifer. Curiously, this is also an area dominated by gold and iron ore mining, as well as gas exploration and extraction. Mining and fossil fuel extraction both rely heavily on water inputs, meaning these industries stand to remove water from aquifers faster than it can be replaced by nature. These operations obviously take place where fossil fuels and valuable metals are present, which is not necessarily where water resources are abundant enough to power the process. In the United States, 36% of oil and gas wells are located in areas experiencing aquifer stress and depletion. When industries set up shop in areas where groundwater levels are already struggling, it places all the more pressure on the aquifers supplying fresh water to the area. Residential water use. Roughly 2 billion people around the world rely on groundwater as their source of fresh water. With aquifers currently being depleted, that means 2 billion people are at risk of losing the water they use for drinking, cooking, and cleaning. The most recent study conducted by NASA showed that aquifers currently being used by densely populated areas are especially being hit hard by unsustainable extractions. With no reliable above-ground fresh water resources, aquifers become critical in supplying areas such as India, Pakistan, the Arabian Peninsula, and northern Africa with fresh water. In fact, the Arabian aquifer system, which supports 60 million people, was found to be the most stressed aquifer on the planet. As world population grows and shifts toward heavily populated areas, demand for fresh water for residences in those areas can only be expected to increase. How can I help? You may not be able to single-handedly shut down a gold mining operation or turn off the sprinklers to every lawn in your neighborhood in an effort to save water. But you can certainly do a lot as an individual to make a huge impact on water conservation for aquifers. Here are a few easy ideas you can put into play today. Don't buy bottled water. Bottled water companies have the obnoxious tendency to steal water from drought-ridden areas to bottle it and sell it at a marked-up price to the consumer. If you're taking water away from an area that really needs it, you're encouraging that area to maintain unsustainable water extraction rates to meet its own needs. Watch your water use around the house. It is easy to waste water without really realizing it. Monitor your shower time and use only the water you need to get clean. You can sing every song on Beyoncé's latest album later, without the tap running. To really swing for the fences when it comes to water conservation, cut back on the animal products you consume. Eating meat is actually a major contributing factor to how much water a person uses in their daily life. Switching to a diet that relies less or not at all on animal sources of protein will really make you a water hero. Some recent studies done in Europe found that a liter of soy milk used just a third of the amount of water needed to produce a liter of cow's milk. And a beef burger patty used 15 times the water required to produce a soy burger patty of the same size. As the leading organization at the forefront of the conscious consumerism movement, it is One Green Planet's view that our food choices have the power to heal our broken food system, give species a fighting chance for survival, and pave the way for a truly sustainable future.